So up first, we should have Cheryl James from the Canadian Animal Health Surveillance System giving us an update on CAS.
Thanks. I just a quick update on CAS for today. We have the Equine Notifiable Disease Working Group has been meeting and is working out all the details. I won't bore you with all of it, but all the details on the process around reporting notifiable disease, who reports to whom and when and how it gets reported back out to the community. So that work is progressing very well. The next steps for that is we're going to be looking at building a database where the information can be compiled, and it will be there and available for us to query or for anybody to query on a historical basis if we want to look at trends over time and that sort of thing. So that is underway for the Equine Surveillance Network. And the end of November, we had the National Farm Animal Health and Welfare Council Forum. As you are aware from previous calls, we are transitioning CAS from its current location, which is within CFIA and AFC. We're transitioning it out to the National Farm Animal Health and Welfare Council, which is a Fed-Prog industry collaborative organization, so it's a much better fit for CAS. The Equine Network was invited to present on the network and on the successes of the network, and to really comment on a little bit on, the sort of why, what are the reasons for its particular success. And I just wanted to congratulate Christy House on doing an excellent job in that presentation at the forum. There was a panel discussion afterwards with Christy and with several other network representatives, surveillance network representatives, primarily from provincial or regional networks. I think we were one of two national networks, so it was really a good conversation, interesting discussion, and Christy was again able to raise it up to the national level and bring the discussion to how do we take all this information from this provincial networks and raise it up to the national level. So thank you very much for that, Christy, and well done.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. So next up we have John Patel, and he's going to give us an update on the equine notifiable diseases in Alberta for 2018.
Thank you. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to present our information. First thing you have to recognize is that in Alberta, we do not have a diagnostic laboratory, and so we rely on the private labs as well as the veterinarians to provide us information about equine diseases. The Animal Health Act for the provincial government came into effect in the year 2009, and so after that, West Nile virus was one of the diseases identified as a notifiable disease reportable to the chief provincial veterinarian. Included also was the equine herpes virus, the neurologic form, and Lyme disease and anthrax. Other diseases that are of interest to our chief provincial veterinarian are the equine infectious anemia, because it's also reportable to CFIA, as well as Eastern equine encephalitis and Western equine encephalitis, which are immediately notifiable to CFIA, but they are zoonotic diseases, and so we just want to know about them. They are not notifiable, provincially notifiable. I'll try to focus a lot more on West Nile virus because that's one of the diseases where we have been receiving more information from practitioners as well as private labs. In 2007, we had 46 cases that were reported to us. And as I mentioned earlier, Animal Health Act came into effect in 2009, and we had only one case reported. But since 2012, more cases have been reported to the Chief Provincial Veterinarian. And like in 2013, we had 14 cases reported, 2014, 6 cases, 2015, 10 cases, 2016, 10 cases, and 2017, 14 cases. In 2017 is when CFI decided to define these cases a little bit more in detail. And of the 14 cases that were reported in 2017, 11 cases were classified as positive, 2 cases as possible, and 1 case as suspect. Now, I know that CFIA does not have the suspect category, but we, according to our Animal Health Act, we have a requirement from the veterinarians that if they suspect West Nile virus, they still have to notify the Chief Provincial Veterinarian. So even if they have not done testing or they have not confirmed the case, we still require them to send us a notification that they suspect that there is a case of West Nile virus. So that is why we have 1 case which is classified as suspect where there was no testing done, but there were neurologic signs that were present there. I'm not going to review the case classification of CFIA. I think that pretty much everybody knows about that. As far as 2018 is concerned, and this is now coming pretty much to the end of our West Nile virus, we had 82 cases reported to the Chief Provincial Veterinarian, of which 75 were classified as positive according to CFIA. All 75 cases were IgM positive. In addition to that, we had 2 more cases that were IgM positive, low titers, but with very recent history of vaccination, and so they were classified as possible cases. We did have 1 reactor case, and then we had 2 suspect cases, giving us a grand total of 82. Based on the information provided to the Chief Provincial Veterinarian, we looked at the vaccination status of these horses for West Nile virus, and we had information provided for 41 horses on this information. And basically, out of the 75 horses that were classified as positive, we did not have information for 36 of those animals, but we had information on 39, and none of those horses were vaccinated for West Nile virus. So pretty much all the horses that were not vaccinated for West Nile virus were also tested positive for West Nile virus with clinical signs. The increase in number of cases this year as compared to last year is pretty much easily explained by the weather conditions that were present in the province. Basically, the Culex tarsalis activity in Alberta starts once we have reached between 150 and 200 degree days temperature threshold. And by July 15th, pretty much a good portion of southern and central Alberta had reached a threshold of between 250 and 300 degree days for Culex tarsalis. And so we had a pretty long period where there was increased Culex tarsalis activity, and this persisted until pretty much middle of September, and that explains why our cases range from as early as middle to late July to pretty much middle to end of September. Most of our cases were, in fact, 75% of our cases were basically focused or concentrated in southern part of Alberta, and the rest being around central Alberta. And that is the area which was the most favorable as far as weather conditions were concerned for Culex tarsalis. The other thing we did was we basically looked at the submissions for these notifiable diseases, and we looked for testing for other diseases. Of the 82 cases that were submitted to the Chief Provincial Veterinarian, 62 cases were not tested for equine herpes virus, but of the 20 cases that were tested, 14 tested negative by PCR for equine herpes virus 1, 3 tested negative for herpes virus 1 and 4, and 1 tested negative for herpes virus 1, 2, 4, and 5, and 2 of the cases were positive on serotonin neutralization, but just a single test. There were 12 cases that were tested for equine protozoal myelitis, of which 2 had low positive titers and 10 were negative. There was 1 horse that was tested for Lyme disease, and there was no antibody response detected for C6 antigen. And then there was 1 case that was tested for Eastern equine encephalitis, and it had a plaque reduction neutralization test titer of 1 to 10 and was classified positive by Ames, Iowa. There wasn't a second titer done on that horse. So I think that basically provides the total update as far as our monitoring for equine diseases is concerned. I certainly would like to thank Brett Oliver for maintaining all this data and everything, and David Giffen at Saskatoon Research Center for providing us with this degree day maps to allow us to know basically what are the risks for our horse owners in the province as far as West Nile virus is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on and providing the update. We'll save questions until the end. So up next, I'm just going to give a quick update from the Health and Welfare Committee and the welfare portion of Equestrian Canada and what's been going on in the last month. So as Cheryl mentioned, which I will just briefly skip over, we were at the National Farm Animal Health and Welfare Council this past week and did an update on the equine core team's work so far. As well, the main theme around the council's conference was biosecurity and disease management and disease response. So there were some very clear takeaways from the content and the different presenters, and that full report can be provided by myself to anyone who wants it. If you wanted to just give me an email at khouse@equestrian.ca. As well, I attended the World Breeders' Federation of Sport Horses in Budapest, Hungary this past week, which is a assembly arranged by the World Breeders' Federation, and in attendance are many different representatives from stud books and sport federations from around the world, and the theme this year was welfare. The full report on that conference is still going to be compiled, but will be available as well. And talking about welfare issues in sport in regards to breeding and reproduction and where we're headed and what we can do collectively internationally to sort of address and amend to these concerns. As well, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has released their What We Heard document. That can be found on the Equestrian Canada website or by going to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency website. As well, the Health and Welfare Committee will be working on developing some training around the Emergency Action Plan, which can be found under Horse and Welfare on the Equestrian Canada website. It's geared towards biosecurity and emergency response for barns and competition. And now that we're into the season of planning for next year, it's essential to have a look at those requirements and develop your plan for next year. As well, for these calls, any past recordings can be found under welfare and national and infectious disease. And if you have any topics you would like to bring forward to next month's call, it's always on the first Wednesday of every month, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And just email me again, khouse@equestrian.ca, to be added to the agenda. So with that, we'll move on to Shauna Cooper from Equestrian Canada, who's going to give us an update from the Equestrian Canada Equine Med Control Committee and their work within the competition season this year. Go ahead, Shauna.
Perfect. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Fabulous. Okay, so I'll just give a high-level update of the testing that was done across the country. So we tested approximately 49% of the shows, and over 1,400 horses were tested. There are currently 7 positives posted to the medication violation page. This includes 3 medroxyprogesterone warnings that were issued, and those will remain on the website for 3 years as per the public disclosure policy. So we ultimately had a really successful year of testing, a lot of positive feedback from the competitors themselves that they were happy to see everybody out and making sure that the horses are happy and healthy and creating level playing field. We are actively recruiting more equine medication control testers as well across the country. So if that something is of interest, you can go to the equine medication website and send along a resume and cover letter. And the other update that has come through as well in regards to permitted medication, USEF has actually announced that Pergolide, which is a permitted medication here in Canada and was a controlled substance or a prohibited medication in the United States, they've now announced that you can apply for a therapeutic use exemption form. So that means that with that form, horses with Cushing's will be able to go to competition while on Pergolide, and they do not need to fill out a medication report form. So that's another step in a positive direction for that. If you do not have that therapeutic use exemption form, then it's still a 24-hour withdrawal for USEF and filing the medication report form. But again, Pergolide is permitted in competition in Canada. But it's an update from them. And that's it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shauna. Up next, we have Lindsay Blakely from Equestrian Canada, who will be giving us an update on the 2018 rules revision cycle. Just as a note from the Health and Welfare Committee, we have put forward a rule to have a requirement for equine influenza and equine herpes vaccinations. So please start to have those conversations with your veterinarian and make a plan. They are required to be administered within 6 months of competition and not within the 7 days ahead of competition. But there will be more education and communication come out upon final approval of that rule, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind and start to prepare for. Okay, Lindsay, *6 to unmute.
Thanks, Christy. Just to give a quick update on the actual rule cycle itself. We are currently in phase 4 of the annual rules revision cycle. So this means that all proposed rule changes have been amended based on the feedback that was submitted by EC members during the September comment period. The final proposed changes, including any FEI rule revisions, have been reviewed by the National Rules Committee and will next be reviewed by the EC Board of Directors at their next meeting, which is scheduled for December 17th. After the proposed changes have been reviewed by the Board of Directors, the approved changes will be posted on the Equestrian Canada website on the rules page, and the new rules will become effective on January 1st. We had approximately 250 proposed changes that so far have been approved in the process and are awaiting final approval by the EC Board of Directors. And just another reminder is that each year from January 1st to May 31st, the online rule change suggestion portal is open for people to submit, for EC members to submit any rule change suggestions for the following year's rules. That's it from my side.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lindsay. And our last speaker today is going to be Julia Elbrand from the Equine Guelph, giving us an update on the Equine Guelph Industry Symposium and some information about the International Society of Equitation Science plans to be in Canada next year. So, Julia, are you available?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Julia Ellebrand. I'm a fourth-year student at the University of Guelph in the Bachelor of Bioresource Management program, majoring in equine management. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I'll be presenting the summary of our third Equine Industry Symposium that was held at the University of Guelph in October. So the summaries from previous symposia are available in full length on the University of Guelph webpage if you are interested in reading those. And this summary was prepared with the help of one of our second-year VBRM students, Jamie Mylach, and our faculty advisor of the VBRM program and professor, Dr. Katrina Murky. So the third annual Equine Industry Symposium took place on October 27th, 2018, and it was hosted by the official organizing committee consisting of industry members, University of Guelph faculty and students, and the second-year class of the Bachelor of Bioresource Management program, majoring in equine management. Horse enthusiasts from all backgrounds participated in engaging discussions on prevalent industry issues centered on standards and professionalism, led by the following invited speakers. Our first speaker was Catherine Getchie, Business Development Manager at the University of Ottawa, and she spoke about the importance of professionalism in building connections and lasting partnerships. Next, Dr. Kendra Coulter, Professor of Labor Studies at Brock University, reported on her recently released study on horse farm employers and employees in Ontario, showing that 50% of stable workers reported earning minimum wage or less, and almost half of the workers are improperly classified as independent contractors and therefore not protected by the Employee Standards Act. Pam Coburn from Ontario Equestrian explained 4 main gaps that she perceives in the industry. First, horsemanship and the need to better understand horses' needs. Second, the athlete and coach development. Third, competition programming, where riders should have to prove performance at a lower level before being permitted to show at higher levels. And fourth, the fragmentation of the sport and the fact that all aspects of the industry need to come together more. We also had Diane Creech, an elite dressage rider, who compared the coaching certifications between Germany and Canada, with the German process being much more rigorous and standardized. Len Tan from Cantac Marketing talked about the importance of branding and how brands are comparable to bank accounts. Personal experiences with the company or industry either add to or take away from your account. Kelly Merritt from the Ontario Association of Veterinary Technicians stressed the importance of standards as proof of providing the best services possible, particularly in an industry where certification is not mandatory. And Akash Maharaj, our moderator and facilitator of discussion, stressed the size of our Canadian equine industry, being bigger than the dairy sector, and yet all of our industry attendees agreed that the equine industry lacks in unity, regulation, and standardization, limiting our impact within our own country. So these issues make it difficult to find the best trainers, coaches, and best care practices for the most important member of our community, which is the horse. And while it is clear that the industry has a long way to go to align the practices of all those involved, the symposium stimulated the participants to think about standardization and professionalism. Our co-facilitator, Tim Nelson, who's the CEO of Livestock Research Innovation Corporation and Executive Director of PigGen Canada, challenged us to collaborate on action items as a way to improve and promote our industry. The first action item he suggested was to create standardized job descriptions for people working at horse facilities across all sectors. Then he urged us to collaborate and consolidate horse organizations and associations to pool strength for a unified voice. He recommended we identify champions to lead the future vision of our industry and to identify exemplary employers as role models, as well as identifying funding opportunities. And with a unified voice, we meet with government representatives to raise awareness of the size and the scope of our equine industry. The Equine Guelph has created, through their web page, thehorseportal.ca, we've created a conference tab for the Equine Industry Symposium. And this allows for industry members to participate in ongoing discussions and ways to fulfill some of these action items. The registration for this page is free of charge, and if you use the following code, it's EIS Forum 2018, all in one word. And we sincerely hope to see even more equine industry members from all sectors at next year's symposium, which is scheduled to take place mid to end October in 2019. For more information, you can contact the organizing committee at eqevents@uofguelph.ca. And this completes the summary of the 2018 Equine Industry Symposium. So aside from this great conference, the University of Guelph is also going to be hosting the conference from the International Society of Equitation Science, or short ISES. And you should put the dates of August 19th to 21st, 2019 into your calendars for the 15th Annual Equitation Science Conference that will be held at the University of Guelph, Canada's largest and most renowned agricultural university and one of only 5 veterinary colleges in Canada. Come and be fascinated by what science has uncovered about the unique horse-human connection. With the theme of bringing science to the stable, the conference will focus on mankind's history with horses, what we have learned about horse-human interaction, and how we can continue to improve our relationship with these amazing animals. In line with the ISES mission, this conference will promote and encourage the application of objective research and advanced practice to improve the welfare of horses in their association with humans. It will consist of speakers and practical days, which gives us the opportunity to get some hands-on experience and exposure to some of the practices that have been researched. So for updates, I urge you to visit the ISES website at equitationscience.com, and the registration for this conference will open early in 2019. That completes the information from me. Thanks again for having me today, and over to you, Christy.
Thank you very much. Very happy to hear you guys had another successful symposium, and super excited about having ISES out. Those are both great initiatives. Okay, well, and with that, we'll conclude this month's call. Again, if you have any suggested agenda items or to get any more information from the various conferences that Equestrian Canada was in attendance at this month, please email khouse@equestrian.ca. And for more information and resources, visit the website equestrian.ca, and under industry, we have horse welfare as well as national and infectious disease.